All right. So, disclaimer, guys. This conversation is going to have details of drug abuse. There is going to be conversation of possible DV, narcissistic abuse, those kinds of things. So, if you're not in the mental state to digest the harder conversations, I'd recommend maybe coming back or skipping this one. Welcome back to the Garden Guys. As always, it's me, Peaches, making sure everything's okay. They didn't give me the thumbs up, but I'm taking it as a spiritual thumbs up. So, once again, or for the first time, we don't know if the first one recorded yet. I am here with Meg.
Hi.
You
It's
still
so
in?
great to be here.
It's nice having you here. Are you feeling a little bit more comfortable?
Yes.
That's good. So, just in case, let's reintroduce who you are.
Okay. My name is Meg, and some people call me a life coach, but I call myself a perspective shifter.
I love that.
So it came to me because I'll push you, like the difference between a therapist and a life coach, right? Is a therapist is more talk therapy and things like that. A coach is just like any other coach. They're going to push you a little farther. They're going to push you outside of your boundaries. And they're really cheering for you. They really want you to win. So some people call me that. I call myself a perspective shifter. I have developed a program that I can walk people through. Usually they are women, because I come from a woman's perspective, and they just feel lost. They feel like they don't know who they are. They don't know what their next step is. And that could be from a divorce, a job loss, empty nest, an abusive relationship, which is where I started. The women that I started helping were in abusive relationships. And it's just kind of morphed from there to a lot of women go through a lot of things in their life, a lot of changes, especially women, I feel, go through all these different changes where they have to reinvent themselves. Because you spend a lot of time being a mom and identifying as a mom. Then your kids grow up and go away and you're like, what am I now? Or you throw yourself into a career. And after that ends for whatever reason, who am I now? You know? So that's what I try to help women find their power, which is that which makes to find their power. To me, what power means is that which makes you uniquely you. And I want everybody to be able to embrace it and live that unapologetically.
Okay. Are you coaching now? Is that your current gig?
Yeah.
All right.
It is. And working on a podcast, and I do TikTok and private coaching, and it's all a work in progress.
Yeah.
So I'm growing into it now.
I think it will always be a work in progress.
I think all life is a work in progress. If you're not growing, you might as well be planted.
Right. Things don't thrive in the darkness.
Nope.
So, what is the name of is it a coaching business? Course?
I throw everything under Recover Your Power.
Okay.
Because each letter in power means something, and it depends on who I'm working with, which I pull from. So it's making peace with your past and your outlook and the words you use and words that run around in your head that aren't true, but you've believed them your whole life.
Yeah.
E is the energy you put out, the energy you're around, and R is can be like responding versus reacting, or staying in reality, or eventually reclaiming your power. So
that's all.
A lot.
It is a lot, and you can tell you have a lot of knowledge, and you've done a lot to get to this point, because you have a whole acronym going on.
I have a whole acronym.
I love that.
Yes, and I'm glad you said it was an acronym, because I always wonder what that thing is called when one word means a lot of words.
I want to say, I think it's an acronym.
It is.
Okay, dope.
It is an acronym. But yeah, and it's all drawn from my life. So what I did with my life was I went, how did I overcome these things, and how did I center again? Because I felt like when people would talk about love yourself or practice self-love, they drop the ball completely. And what is self-love? What does that mean? And it's really not a day at the spa. It's not, it can encompass all of that, but it is truly healing.
Yeah.
from not just what just happened, but things from a long time ago, which a lot of people don't want to look at.
So before I have another question, but before we get into that question, where can people find you if they want to work with you?
On TikTok, it's Recover Your Power. YouTube, I'm just starting, so you won't find a lot on YouTube, but it's still Recover Your Power. I just kind of keep all of it under that name so people can find me.
Okay. Do you have an Instagram or anything? Facebook page?
Yes, I have Instagram. I have a Facebook group. All of it is under Recover Your Power.
All right. So any platform, search Recover Your Power, and if you don't see it, it's not there yet.
Yep. And that is also what my podcast will be called. And I had a website at one time, but I kind of shut it down because for a while I wasn't coaching. I wasn't doing anything. I kind of got overwhelmed and I backed off from everything. So I have to check to see if I still have my domain name, but I believe I do. And that'll be a whole thing where you can go on and schedule appointments, some emails if you have questions by email. And that's what I really want my podcast to be like, kind of like, and it's inspired by you guys because I think reading an email keeps the person anonymous. Is probably, I could bet, I would place a pretty big bet that their story isn't the only one like theirs. So you never know who's listening, and it also keeps an anonymity for them. So
it removes a pressure.
It does. It does. But, I always say people should share their stories because you never know who's going to hear it. You never know who lived it. And you never know what I say to them could help them as well. So I think that's I would really, really love to start getting email questions, email stories. Where do I go from here? This is my situation that I can answer on my podcast because I think that would be really helpful.
And what's that email?
It is recoveryourpower@gmail.com.
At Gmail. I was going to say, is it at Gmail?
It is.
But some people use Yahoo, and I understand.
I don't understand. Right? I don't understand the Yahoo anymore, but yes, at Gmail. And eventually it'll be something like inquiry@recoveryourpower.com. I just don't have that set up yet. So
how exciting. I can't wait to see that. That's going to be dope.
Excited, nervous.
Yeah.
Wondering who the hell would listen to me, but
a lot of people.
But I get that encouragement from a lot of people. I've had people email me and say I left an abusive relationship because of what you said.
Yeah.
This journey started with me with 14 open bottles of pills in front of me that I was ready to take and end it.
Okay. Well, I'm going to come back to that. I had something I wanted to say before we jump into that because that's intense.
Very.
And I have a similar situation where I was like, that was my wake up, like my come to, like, oh my God, this is my life and I'm choosing to do this. So you listed off a couple of things earlier, like getting your nails done and a spa day. That's self-care in my eyes. That's like the maintenance of you're taking time for yourself and decompressing and not worrying about anybody else. Self-love, like you've said, is coming to peace with your past and accepting things and whatnot. When you think about love, when we love somebody else, we are willing to look past all of their flaws and say, look, that's not who you are anymore. I see who you are now and I love you. Why do you think it is so hard for us to do that to ourselves? Because that's what self-love would be. But so many people are just like, no, I am what I am. My past is my past. I can't move on from that. But willing to accept it in somebody else is a conundrum, I guess.
It is. Being compassionate for ourselves, I think has always been looked at as selfish, as being selfish. It's also that every thought, every ugly thought you've had, every ugly deed you've done, you know yourself better than anyone else. So you can look at somebody else and you don't know they were just thinking a bad thought. You see the surface of them.
Yeah.
You know yourself extremely deeply. And you see every flaw, what you perceive to be as flaws, right? And you don't see that in other people. So I think when we have such a perspective on ourselves that we see the ugly, we see the ugly thoughts we had, or the not so nice thoughts we had, or the bad things we may have done, and we know what we were thinking when we did them. It can be. It's just so much uglier than you're going to see anybody else. Nobody's going to come to you as raw as you see yourself. And that's why I feel like that power is embracing that which makes you uniquely you, which is all those experiences, all those thoughts, and living it unapologetically. I can't say that.
Oh, I think you nailed it.
I did.
Unapologetically.
Unapologetic.
No, I'm over here messing
No,
it
I
up.
can't say it. Unapologetically. But you really have to embrace all
Yeah.
the bad and the good and everything. And that's why we can look at other people and love them. I have made some very, very good friends recently, and I just embrace them for who they are now. I'm not judging them on their past. I didn't know them before.
Right.
That's why family can be so toxic, because family has seen everything you've gone through. And some people don't let go of the old stuff you did
Yeah.
and don't release you from that. It's your job to release yourself from it. And we don't see that about people we just meet and think are amazing, because they've gone through growth and they are where they're at. And we love them where they stand. And for us, we know too much of our own history.
That was a really good way to put that.
Thanks.
Very good explanation. So, you mentioned that you were at a point where you had 14 open pill bottles in front of you.
I did. I was medicated for anxiety, depression, chronic pain. So I had a lot of pretty good, prescription meds. And my kids had left home. They were all grown. I started being a mother when I was 18.
Oh, young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where my life was going. I just felt lost. I felt so lost. And I had 14 bottles of pills in front of me, and I was ready to take them because I didn't want to wake up anymore. I just didn't want to do one more day like that. And I thank God for my 3 kids, because if it comes through in the other podcast, I had said I lost my mom when I was 6, and I never wanted my kids to lose my mom. Eventually they will, but now they're all in their late 20s, early 30s, so they can handle that. I just didn't, I didn't see the light. I felt like I was in the bottom of the well, and the bottom of the well fell out, and I could no longer see the light.
It's just darkness.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And people would say all the time, just pick yourself up. Why are you so sad? I don't know why I'm so sad. Chronic or what is it called? Major depressive disorder isn't about being sad. It is literally chemicals in your brain that aren't firing off right. That's how I understand it anyways. So I don't know what made me do it, but I reached out to my brother, who I moved out when I was 3. Like, I didn't know him very well, but he lived in Florida, and I had been on a vacation in Florida maybe 6 months before that.
Okay.
My dad had died in September. This was December. So you're going into living in Ohio with the gray weather. I suffered from SAD. My kids were gone. It was just a mess. I went through a lot. So I called him and I said, I don't want to wake up anymore. And he said, get your ass down here. I got rid of everything I had. I talked to my kids. And I said, I can't function this way. I need to get better. So my brother said, get your butt down here. I got rid of everything I had, took a carry-on bag, and moved 1,000 miles away from home to a place I'd only been once on vacation.
Yeah.
And I created a life.
How dope was that?
So dope.
Yeah.
So dope. It was the first time I created a life that had nothing to do with anyone but me. Because I went from being a child to being a mother and a wife again. I always identified with someone else,
Right.
as me and someone else, me and my kids, me and my partners, right? This time it was just me. And I just got to know myself really well. So that's when I started actually going through those steps that a therapist had given me long before and applying it to this situation. And then I went through an emotionally abusive relationship with a narcissist. And I hate that word because I think it's overused, but he seriously was. Moved from my home to his 500 miles away, gave up my businesses, gave up my life. And then one day he said, oh, by the way, I found somebody else. You're going to have to go. This was after he cheated 4 times. So this is not a surprise, right?
Right.
But I was so devastated and I felt so lost. And I just went through my steps again. And I'm like, these steps really work. How can I? It took me a while, to go through the steps that time. But I was like, I was looking through, and I feel like when they talk about self-help and they say, practice self-love, practice self-love. I was like, you dropped the ball. What does that mean? So when I was developing these steps, I started writing them down. And I actually took him to a friend of mine who's a psychotherapist. And when I was driving one day, he's like, you got to package this all up in a kind of with a neat little bow. And I'm like, how do I do that? I kept writing. One day I was in the car and I came up with recover your power, which was make peace with your past and change your outlook and your words and your energy and your, respond instead of react. And I took it to him. I said, what do you think about this? He said, you just hit the mother load. He said, do you know how many people need this? And I'm like, I really couldn't wrap my brain around it at the time. And that was 3 years ago. And I have been stalling
Yeah.
for years. I ran into TikTok.
Yeah.
And I didn't mean to, but grew a decent following. And people really did need it, and they do need it. So now I'm about to hone it into a podcast and the coaching and all that. So.
Well, when you think about it, like you said, you lost your mom when you were young.
Yeah.
Stepmom came in when you were a little bit older. Your stepmother was a motherly figure, but you didn't have that motherly connection.
Right. Sure.
So, like you were saying, your mom passed away when you were younger. Stepmom came in when you were a little bit older. From your perspective, you didn't have that motherly connection, so you kind of grew up without the mom figure being there. Even though you had somebody there who stepped in, there was that animosity and like, you're not my mom, right? So getting into your late teen years, becoming a mother, there's no blueprint. So a lot of people go through that.
Yeah.
I can understand how you've amassed a following that you have, not just because of your experiences with someone who was narcissistic and crawling out of that. It's such a dark tunnel to be in.
It is.
But you also have the experience of, kind of failing in motherhood. Everybody fails in motherhood. There are times that I look back on with my kids and I'm like, oh man, yeah, that was a learning experience. Not doing that one again.
Right. They don't come with instruction manuals.
No.
And all three of my kids are different. So my oldest is a lot like me, very stubborn, and we would fight as hard as we would love. My second son is autistic. So I had a special needs child at 20 and was dealing with that. And then my daughter is, we divorced when she was 2. So she was raised, she's very, very close to her dad, which I think is normal for girls anyways. But I really didn't know how to mother a daughter. I feel like, she's 27 now. She'll be 27. And I don't know if I did it right. I always question whether I did it right.
Yeah.
And I think all of us do the best we can with what we know at the time.
Right.
The one thing I know is that my kids can talk to me, and that is a gift. That is, I couldn't do that. I was raised in an old school family, and you were seen and not heard. You did not. I still don't believe in being friends with your kids.
I agree.
But there was no communication between parents and kids besides being told what to do.
Right.
And I've said a lot of times there's a lot of things that now parents are not doing any service to their kids by doing it. But I think the one thing we did was open the door to communication.
Yeah.
And I am so glad for that. So, yeah. And I will say that I had 5 sisters, older sisters, who I think tried really hard to be that mother figure.
Yeah.
But then they had their kids.
Right.
So the unconditional love you get from a mother was something I never got.
Yeah.
Because the one that loved me like that was gone.
And how do you give something that you've never experienced, right?
Oh, you just do.
You just...
You just do. I have told people the one and only case of love at first sight is your child.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, you love them. You just, and it's indescribable. so it comes naturally. But as far as showing it, I maybe overdid it sometimes and underdid it other times. And I think as mothers, we're always going to second guess ourselves.
Yeah.
And we're never going to do it perfect. And our kids are going to see it in a whole different light. And that's why I could go off on a whole tangent about this, but very quickly, if your parents were the ones who caused you any trauma when you were young, really try and look back and ask them, or try to see where they were at. Were they parented a certain way? Did they know any different? Or did they choose?
Right.